On this episode of the Backyard Brewer, we're going to take a look at the latest addition to the Backyard Brewery, and that is this Brewbilt fermenter. This is the 144 litre Brewbilt X2 Unitank stainless steel conical fermenter. Now that's a mouthful. It is, I'll just explain that. So it's obviously made of stainless steel. Everything on it is stainless. It's got these 1.5 inch ports here, 5 of them. It's got, because it's a jacketed Unitank, it's got a glycol chiller jacket on it, so you can connect the glycol system up to it. It's got a 2-inch port on the bottom for your yeast and trub collection, and it's got this large port on the top for pressure fermenting. And I've got the pressure fermenting kit. I just have to put it together, and that'll go on this afternoon. We're doing a pale ale in this first up. Now, the one piece of equipment that I don't have on here yet that is absolutely essential is this parka, neoprene jacket that goes onto it. And the reason that this needs to go onto it is that we get some very hot days here in Australia in summer. Brisbane temperatures from mid-September, so about a month from now, right through to March and even April, will be 30-degree days all summer, all spring, all summer, and part of autumn long, or autumn we call autumn, some of you call fall. So we will get 33, 35 degree days consistently from September through to March and even into April. Now, in order to brew the beers that I want to brew, the first up is going to be a pale ale, and it's using the California yeast strain. I don't want it getting too hot because then it's going to throw some nasty flavours that I don't want in there. Likewise, when I'm brewing lagers, I want it to stay nice and cool so that the lager yeast just goes along nice and slowly and ferments out at the pace that you should do a lager, which is nice and slow. Now, in winter, we get temperatures down to 5 degrees and even lower, and that's constantly through winter. Overnight, winter temperatures will drop down to anywhere between 2 and 5 Celsius. So, in order to cope with that, I've got this neoprene parka that goes with it. So let's get that on. Okay, there we have it. The jacket's on. Now it's not a perfect fit. I don't know. That's up as high as I can get it. You've got these little, all those ports have got holes cut out. Then you've got this little clump here that kind of sits all the way around like a ridge. Not perfect, but there you go. Now the next thing I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to open the lid, and I'm going to get my spray bottle and then just spray through there with sanitizing liquid just to make sure that everything's good to go later today when I throw the pale ale in there. But what do we have? Okay, so we've got these 2 ports here are just capped off at the moment. This port, or one of these ports will have a pressure valve, pressure fermenter / airlock on there. I'll show you that as part of the video when I put the pale ale in here. The pressure fermentation kit will go on top here, and that includes an additional PRV plus an offtake port and a gas port. So you can actually serve from this bright tank if you wanted to. Down here I have a sample port, so I can just open this gently, take a little sample from there, either test the specific gravity or take a little taste to see how it's developing. We've got a thermowell here, and that thermowell is part of the glycol system. That's going to help regulate the temperature of my fermentations while they're in there. Bottom port here is capped off at the moment. Down the bottom you've got the butterfly valve on a 2-inch port. Now to that I'm going to add a right angle and a narrow, like a 2 to 1.5 inch converter, and then off the 1.5 inch I'm going to have just a little barbed spigot so that I can dump my tube. So when I pump the water in here, I can give it a little bit of time. Once that's settled, I can then take the tube out, then I pitch my yeast, and before I do any dry hopping on those recipes that call for dry hopping, I can actually take the yeast out so that I don't contaminate the yeast with the hops. So I'm not going to get leftover hop flavour if I want to save that yeast and reuse it, which I'm going to do. I'm going to start saving my yeast and start reusing it and using slants to store the yeast in a nice condition and a nice orderly way as well, so that I can easily identify the yeasts that I've got. So that's it for the moment. I'm just going to sanitize the unit now. That's nothing special, it's nothing particularly interesting. That's just a quick intro to this piece of kit, something that you'll be seeing a lot more of as I start to increase the size of my brews. But I'll also be doing general smaller brews and even some brews in those old style barrel fermenters as well, just so that you can see you don't need this fancy kit. I've just reached a level in my brewing where I now want to use things like glycol chillers and stainless conical fermenters and larger brew houses and canning machines, because that's where my brewing's taken me. But you don't have to. You can still stay simple. You can still use your barrel fermenters. And I'm going to actually do, over the next couple of weeks, I'm actually going to do a seltzer in a barrel fermenter and then flavour it after it's been fermented with different flavourings, just to see what it comes out like and see, what sort of flavourings I like. Unfortunately, all of the instructions for the Brewbilt come in Imperial. The correct gap setting for the lid band is 5/8 of an inch. Now if you multiply 5/8 by 25.4, you get 15 millimetres. That is about 16 millimetres. I'm going to leave it there tonight. I'm going to give the band a chance to stretch, as I imagine it will, and then I'll come back in tomorrow and finish tightening it up. Let's go ahead and see what came with the X2, and then once I've done that, I'll go and grab the extras that I bought with it, not knowing what it exactly would come with. I bought a few extra tri-clamps and other bits and pieces, blanking ports and gaskets, plus a few other bits and pieces that are going to come in handy for the type of fermentations that I want to do. First up, obviously the unit itself, the fermenter was in there, and in the top of the fermenter was the lid placed upside down, and this bag which has this blow-off tube, and it also had the lid gasket in there. So that's what comes with the unit, plus the band. The band was holding the lid on. The band itself was difficult to get on. Make sure you get the gasket oriented the correct way. And there's a little, like they say in the instructions, the gasket itself is too large. It's larger than the lid. And the reason for that is so that it gives a good positive seal when it's clamped down. So what you have to do is just start it and start pressing it in around each side. When you get to the end, there's going to be some leftover. It's going to bulge out. So what you then have to do is start massaging it back down and around so that it evens out and it sits nicely inside the lid. In order to get the lid sealed, you then put the lid on top. You make sure that it's nicely aligned all the way around. Just go around with your fingers and feel. Your fingers are the best tool you've got as far as measuring little microscopic differences. Your fingers can pick up thousandths of an inch differences between surfaces. So make sure that you do that. Make sure it's all aligned nicely. To get the band itself to go on was a bit of a job, because when you put it on, it's not like when it comes. You've got the extra gasket in there, The lid and the unit itself are sitting further apart, so they're pushing the band out. And when you try to put it together, the rod, the threaded rod, won't come all the way through the hole in the, I don't know what you want to call it, the saddle that you screw onto. So what I had to do, I tried bashing it to get it to sit closer or sit tighter onto the band. That got it a little way through, but not enough to get a catch on it. So what I ended up doing was taking the band off and screwing the thread all the way up and then over tightening it so it would stretch those saddle pieces out a little more. Not too much, because you don't want to buckle the band. So, but just tighten it enough so that it stretches that a little bit, pulls it closer together. Then release it, put it back on, and this time when I bashed around there to make it seat a bit better, you bash around the band to pull it around and around the other side. And then when I did that and pulled it close, I had enough thread exposed that I could get that screw on. And then you want to tighten it down to their recommended level. So they say 5/8 of an inch for this model, gap between the two bands. For those of us who live in the metric system, that's 15 mil. So I've set it to 16 mil at the moment. I'm imagining that band is going to stretch a little over time. So tomorrow I'll come back and I'll tighten that up to the 15 mil gap that they recommend. But for what we get with the X2 itself, obviously get a bunch of these. They're not exactly triclover clamps. Triclovers have 3 pieces. These are only 2 pieces. So that's the normal top cap and the clamp that goes with it. Yep, 2-inch. These are some end caps for the 1.5s. It's a sample port. That is the blow-off tube. So that goes with one of them. Then you've got those 2 end caps that go with the other 2. There's 3 1.5-inch ports on the front and 2 on the top. There's another one and another one. And here we have a Thermowell. Again, it's a shame I didn't know this came, because I ordered a Thermowell. I actually put this aside because it comes in a nice little bag, and that is the 2-inch valve that sits on the bottom. So that is open, and either way is closed. These end caps, make sure you keep them. They're going to come in very handy. So that goes with the 2-inch, and here are all of the gaskets that go with them as well. So that's what comes in the box. Now when you order it through Kegland, you also get the pressure fermentation kit. Okay, so here we are back again. There's a box plus this that came. As I said, I ordered some extras, not knowing exactly what was going to come in the kit. Okay, this is the heavy duty silicon tube, 2 metre lengths, and the butterflies, they are for my glycol system. So I got these butterfly clamps because it looks like they're going to be easier to use than a standard hose clamp where you've got to get in there with a slotted screwdriver. It means that whatever the orientation is, I don't need to reach around and muck around. So that's the other thing. The Brewbilt comes with, as I said, the 3 ports on the front, 2 1.5-inch ports on the top. So that's 5 ports. What isn't included here are triclover clamps and the fittings for your glycol system, which is why I definitely ordered them separate. The other thing that does come in the box is these handy dandy instructions. So these do actually explain a lot of how to put the unit together. The flex chamber comes with the kit as well, and the pressure package comes with the kit when you order it from Kegland. So that must be in this box here. So let's get into here and see what we've got. Okay, that's the neoprene jacket that will be going onto it. So the parka is going to be essential to making sure that I'm not over exerting the glycol and using a lot of electricity. That's a heavy beast. That feels like it's a lot of triclovers, so let's get into it. Yes, more triclovers. They're 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. That's another thermowell. Now this is the inlet and outlet ports for the glycol system. They go on the side of the unit. Gaskets, so I'll put them over there with those gaskets. Port, another gasket, another triclover. As you can see, I'm going to be swimming in triclovers. That's all right, I'll find a use for them eventually. Another larger triclover. That's a 2-inch. There's the pressure kit. That comes with a blanking plate for the top. That comes with the keg posts, your corny keg posts. They mount onto the top of the unit, and that allows you to pressurize with CO2. It also allows you to draw off from the dip tube that's here. So there's a dip tube. I don't see a filter in there, so I think it's just the tube and the ball. Not to worry, I've got spare filters. I can put a filter on there as well. Another triclover for the 1.5 inch fitting on the top. So that's the pressure kit. Another blanking plate and another 2-inch triclover. Triclovers everywhere and more blanking plates. The collection container. Now that comes with the lid. This just pushes on. So this is a spunding valve. So it's got pressures on there in PSI and bar. It has a pressure gauge on there, and that's what this is for, so that I can go from the 2-inch port on the pressure fermentation kit onto here and run that spunding valve. It is quite heavy. I'm assuming that the pressure fermentation kit can take it. Now, I would not leave that connected to here, empty it, and then leave yeast in there. Or mount this and just leave that open so that the yeast automatically collects in there. That is asking for light struck beer. So yeah, no to that. I now have to find a home for all this equipment. I am going to mount these bits and pieces that I can onto the Unitank. And then from there, I'm just going to pack all the rest of it away. It'll become spares. It'll become, bits and pieces for later on for me to work with and have a play around with. There's obviously a lot of other things you can do with a system like this. Kegland, I've just got to add, Kegland are not a sponsor of the channel. I did approach them, but I don't have enough subs at the moment to get sponsorship from them or to get an affiliate with them. I have obviously spent quite a lot of money upgrading equipment for the channel. So if you know someone who's interested in brewing, let them know about the channel, get them to subscribe, get the content out there so that more people see it and more people subscribe. And that way I can get some affiliate relationships and get some sponsorships going, just some basic stuff. I'm not going to run ads, massive ads through the middle of the channel like a lot of shows do. If you find this content interesting, drop us a like. If you're not subscribed yet, just click that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified when there's new content coming out. That's it for this episode, and as I say, enjoy the hobby, but drink responsibly.